네, 여러분들이 아마 그 지난 이틀 동안의 워크숍에 참여하신 분들은 우리 지금 한국의 청소년들의 상황이 어떤 지금 뭐 상황인지 또 어떤 상태인지 이런 거에 대해서, 그리고 가장 큰 문제가 뭔지 이런 거에 대해서도 어느 정도 아이디어를 가졌을 거라고 생각이 듭니다. 그래서 이제 또 거기에 관련돼서 국내외 많은 연사분들의 강연과 대화를 통해 가지고 또 다양한 관점에서 어떻게 청소년들의 문제를 돕고 또 우리가 어떤 그 계획을 할 수 있는지에 대해서도 아마 들으셨을 거라고 짐작해 갑니다. 네, 이번 시간에는 우리 카렌 박사님 통해 가지고 자기 연민 마인드풀 셀프 컴패션이 프로그램이 뭔지, 자기 연민이 뭔지, 그리고 또 이 자기 연민이 이러한 청소년의 어떤 심각한 또 청소년이 당면하고 있는 이런 문제들을 자기 연민이 어떻게 도울 수 있는지, 그리고 또 구체적인 또 자기 연민이 또 방금 카렌 박사 조금 언급했었습니다만 또 어떻게 효과가 있는지 이런 부분에 대해서 전체적으로 한번 짧게 강연을 들어보도록 하겠습니다.
Thank you. Yes, so MSC stands for Mindful Self-Compassion. And Mindful Self-Compassion is actually the adult program, which is 8 sessions long and meets for 2.5 hours a week for 8 sessions. And the purpose of that program is to cultivate self-compassion. It has a foundation of mindfulness, so there's mindfulness in it, and mindfulness is an important part of it. But the main focus of the adult program is to cultivate self-compassion. And so self-compassion has 3 different parts to it, 3 different components. We call them components. And the first component is mindfulness. So there's a mindfulness foundation. And here what mindfulness means is a little bit different than the traditional definition of mindfulness. What it means is having a sense of balanced awareness and to have perspective, have balanced perspective on a situation. And so the second component of self-compassion is common humanity. And common humanity is the understanding that whatever we are experiencing when we're suffering, when we're struggling, or when we're in a difficult, challenging situation, whatever emotions we're experiencing, like anger or anxiety or disappointment or frustration, this is a common experience that people feel, that all human beings feel, that all human beings experience, and that in fact it's defines us as human beings. It's part of the human experience. And then the third component of self-compassion is self-kindness. So this is taking an active step, an active doing something actively to actually be kind to yourself. And it's the kind of thing that you might do for a good friend who is struggling, who is having a hard time. You would think nothing of saying some kind words to them, or maybe giving them a hug or doing something nice for them. We generally don't do those kinds of things for ourselves. And the reason we don't really is that it's not in our culture. We're not raised to do that. We consider that selfish or self-centered or self-indulgent. So we don't readily take time to be nice to ourselves the way we are to our good friends when they're having a hard time. If I could just add one more thing. So what I've just given is the formal definition of self-compassion, that it has these 3 different components. But there's also an informal definition of self-compassion, and that's treating yourself when you're having a hard time, treating yourself the way you would treat a good friend. And we know that 80% of people don't do that. 80% of people are kinder to their friends than they are to themselves.
Thank you, Karen. 지금 이제 우리가 그 자기 연민의 3가지 요소로 마음 챙김, 자기 친절, 또 보편적 인간 경험에 대해서 지금 그 자기 연민의 정의를 또 설명과 함께 잠깐 들었는데요. 자, 이 자기 연민이라고 하는 이런 걸 기반으로 해서 또 청소년을 위해서 특별한 프로그램을 또 개발하고 그 청소년들의 어떤 그 힘겨움, 청소년들이 당면하고 있는 여러 가지 문제에 그를 안고 있는 그런 청소년들 대상으로 이 프로그램을 이제 적용을 해서 실시를 했을 때 어떤 긍정적인 효과들이 있었는지 그것에 대해서도 잠깐 여쭤볼까요?
Yeah, so what we've seen is when we teach this program to teens, what we see is a decrease in anxiety, depression, stress. And as I said earlier, in our most recent study, we've seen, and this is the first time that we measured it, decreases in these factors that are related to suicide. We'll be doing another study. Actually, we're just starting one right now, which is going to be measuring suicide ideation, suicidal thoughts. So we'll know a little bit more about that. That study actually is funded by the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. So we know that there's also an increase in self-compassion, of course, and an increase in mindfulness, and an increase in resilience and life satisfaction.